Hi, I'm Davy, and I'm awesome, and welcome to Davy Reviews Wrestling, where I review wrestling-related things all from the perspective of a fan, not an insider. This week, I am reviewing a wrestling documentary that, as of the moment of this filming, can be found on TubiTV.com. And I am reviewing a documentary about one of the most famous wrestlers to ever come out of Mexico, even though he's from Canada, Vampiro. Nail in the Coffin, The Fall and Rise of Vampiro. This is actually a very excellent documentary because what I love is, like, in the title you see that, the fall and rise, versus most of the time it's the rise and fall. Like, they talk about how it started out great and then went to crap. In this case, Vampiro is doing really well, and it's talking about how he got to that point after not doing so well, which is always what I love. I always love a documentary or something that actually makes you feel good to be a wrestling fan versus the ones that make you feel bad about being wrestling fans. It's just a wrestler talking about how wrestling ruined his life, even though nobody would know who he was if it wasn't for wrestling. And it actually starts with showing what Vampiro is doing right now, which is mostly behind the scenes stuff for AAA. In fact, most of what this documentary was focusing on was him running Triple Mania 25, which Triple Mania is like their big pay-per-view of the year, and it was the 25th anniversary, so it was a big deal. And a couple weeks ago, I alluded to it while talking about the GFW, TNA, Impact Championships. If you do want more insight to the Jeff Jarrett Triple Mania incident, it is in this documentary. But again, I don't want to talk about it. But it mostly focuses on the man himself, Ian Hodgkin. And not only his time behind the scenes on Triple Mania, but his devotion to his daughter. Showing the father man he is, because he is now a single father. He's divorced from his first wife, the mother of his child. But he did what a lot of fathers don't do. Most fathers, if they're going to take the daughter and they take them in like the early years and then kind of give them back to the mom during the teen years, he did the opposite. He has her during the teenage years, which, all power to you, dude. I don't envy that. But according to this documentary, and even according to his daughter, he does seem to be doing a very good job balancing being a single father versus being a guy who works in Mexico but lives in Canada. And of course, it does go into the stuff that these documentaries always go into, like his start, growing up in Canada, being an angry kid, getting involved in collecting for the mafia out there. Which is funny to me because I thought that Canada was all please, thank you, and putting maple syrup on donuts. Yeah, it turns out they have crime there too. But somehow that getting into him going to Los Angeles and becoming a bodyguard for big acts like Milli Vanilli. Hey, say what you want, that was a big act in the 90s. Until we found out they were lip singing. And how that eventually got him into being in wrestling, but he was never like officially trained to be a wrestler, he just kind of fell into it. And he admits that he's never been like a good wrestler in the sense that like he can do all the flashy moves and takedowns and stuff, but you know what? I've talked about that many times, like being a top wrestler doesn't necessarily mean you're like a technical wrestler or something like that. A lot of the biggest names in wrestling, Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, have not been the best wrestlers. And they'll tell you that. But the thing is about Vampiro, I am a fan of Vampiro. Now, I know for the last several years there's been a lot of bashing him on the internet that he politicked during his time in wrestling and kept people down in Mexico. I'm not about to sit here and tell you what my opinion on that, except that if that is true, if he was politicking to hold people down, that's just what wrestling was back then, and still is to an extent. He wasn't the first to do that, he wasn't the last to do that, he wasn't the only doing it when he was doing it. And again, that's if that's the case. Some people just don't like other people. And I also think it's funny how everybody always blames people for politicking and keeping them down, and that's why they didn't have a career, yet other people went through the exact same thing and became some of the biggest stars ever. So, sorry, this might be a tough pill to swallow, but maybe you just weren't good enough. And of course, this documentary did go into some of his time in WCW. Sorry, but WCW ruined just about everything they could have done great, including Vampiro, which was actually my first exposure to Vampiro, and I was instantly a fan. He had a look that just captivated you. Not to mention, there were so many obvious matchups for the guy. Even if they didn't want to just start with him doing a program with one of the top guys, Sting, okay, fine. There were plenty of other people that he would have matched up with perfectly that would have been great draws and would have been exciting rivalries for us. But instead, he was there. And he even brought up some old documentary footage of him mentioning that, WCW was probably the worst time of his career and almost made him want to leave the business altogether, which is a very common story. But then through all this, circled back to him going back to Mexico, being one of the biggest stars in Mexico of his generation, which, again, people can say what they want about Vampiro and his ability, but to compare him in Mexico to somebody like Hulk Hogan is not out of line. Maybe you don't see it that way here in America, but in Mexico, guys like Vampiro and Conan are in the same breath of people like Hulk Hogan and Stone Cold Steve Austin. And for a reason, they were able to entertain the fans. And apparently he's still entertaining the fans. And not to give too much away, but this documentary does end with them mentioning that after they had finished filming, he was diagnosed with the early stages of Alzheimer's. So, best of luck to you, Vampiro. Sucks, dude. So overall, this is a great documentary. It leaves you with a good feeling, especially as a wrestling fan who's always searching out things that make me happy to be a wrestling fan, not make me depressed to be a wrestling fan. And if you're like me and you're like that, you want to find stuff that makes you just excited to be a wrestling fan, then I do recommend that you check out Nail in the Coffin, The Fall and Rise of Vampiro. It's a good one. So there you have it. That's my wrestling review this week. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you guys will check out Nail in the Coffin, The Fall and Rise of Vampiro. If you enjoyed this review, though, make sure you hit like, hit subscribe, hit that little bell so you get notifications for when I post the videos, and leave a comment. Tell me what you thought of Nail in the Coffin. Tell me if you haven't seen Nail in the Coffin, but you're going to go check it out. Love you guys.